there was a 9-year stretch. I never took a day off. I was in the office every single day. I had an idea for Apple. So you walk me on, I had about 12 people. Some were sitting on cabinets. They were somewhere in shorts. Most had flip-flops on. I mean, it was the early days of Apple. I remember opening up the back door of this tiny little rental car and taking my tie and jacket off and putting it in the back. And I'm like, I suck. That was a terrible presentation. So I had Miller, which was a giant account, and Apple became a giant account. And that we started growing the heck out of the business with those two.
Welcome to Innovation Illuminated, a podcast where guest entrepreneurs and experts in their field of business share their experiences and knowledge learned through their journey in the business world. I'm your host, Hunter Pirok, and similar to these guests, I am also an entrepreneur. Today, I'm joined by Gary Reynolds. Gary is the founder and former CEO of GMR Marketing. GMR is a marketing agency that Gary saw great success with matching brands with bands. This kind of business model, so to speak, was that you'd match a brand's image with a band. So say a band was playing at a concert venue and you'd have a Miller Genuine Draft banner above the band to promote that alcoholic beverage. We talked through a lot of his experiences with pitching his services to big companies like Apple and Miller, which are super fun to listen to how Apple was in its early days, seeing the great success that Apple had as a technology company nowadays. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and it was a great time meeting Gary and talking through his journey. I learned a lot and hope you guys learned just as much as I did. So please subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, as that's a great way to support the podcast. And please leave a comment on YouTube with who you'd like me to interview and what you're curious to learn from them. I will be reading all the comments. I hope you enjoy this one. And thanks for tuning in to Innovation Illuminated.
So Omnicom bought out GMR?
Oh, they bought, GMR 20 years before I retired.
Oh, really? And kept you on? So, because you started it, correct?
Yeah, I started it, but then I also built another holding company within Omnicom, and they have tons of hundreds of agencies globally, some of the biggest. And then there's a handful of just smaller groups inside a holding company within the holding company, and then I started that, and then I bought 23 companies globally, and then we rolled them underneath GMR. I think 2 that have failed out of it.
Okay,
which is then they were tiny. We rebranded most.
And they were all advertisement agencies?
They were marketing services, all different areas, Germany and don't ask me all the names
because there's a lot.
Yeah, I can't even remember from.
Yeah,
but we rebranded them all under GMR, and GMR grew so fast, And we had a great culture up until, when COVID hit.
Yeah.
I was already gone. But it was, people stayed. There's people still at GMR.
That you worked with?
That I hired.
Wow.
25 years ago.
So let's take it back to the beginning. Like, how did you come up with the idea or start the business even?
Oh, well, I wanted to be a rock star.
Okay.
That didn't work out for me, but in the process, I left for California. So I play guitar. I was in local bands, and I started writing my own stuff, and I just wanted to get out and give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the days where you really needed to get to New York or LA. You got to get to a major metro to have a music career. So I left for California. My sister was out there. She had just started a business, and I hunkered down out there, kind of rent free, and her and her eventual husband's house, and then I was just trying to pitch my music. Didn't work out, but I had this crazy dream one night about just putting, long story short, putting emerging artists together with brands. And woke up the next day, and I was telling my sister and her husband about it, and I said I'm going back to Milwaukee because I'm going to go to the beer companies because I think they're perfect for it.
Yeah.
Came back, went to Pabst, signed a deal with them with a group that I was kind of managing. Also at the time, I was just getting my back into the market, and then about a year into that, they were selling Pabst, and everybody there said, "You have a ton of really good ideas. You need to go and pitch Miller." And so, almost the very next day, went over to Miller, met the assistant brand manager, John Malign, still a friend today, long retired, and we did a deal, and I had that client for almost 4 years.
Wow.
So,
what was that first pitch like at Pabst? Did you just go in on a whim, or did you have contact there?
I really did.
Yeah.
I was just going, hey, I have this concept of, the band was putting out an album, and it was crazy, way too commercial. The band was holding 12 packs of beer on the poster and stuff. It was terrible, but great. It was still fun. So it came up, really enjoyed the beer business, really understood it well, had a bunch of ideas, and walked over to Miller, and they started taking them.
So that was the niche market that you went for right away, was beer markets to match the bands with the brands. That's what Mark told me. I didn't come up with that on my own.
Bands
with brands.
And that was called the Band Network. And we had a load of artists in there. Now they were, all emerging bands. Some went on to run record labels and to be, incredibly successful managers. Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers was in a band out of Michigan that was on the program. And so his brother actually works in town here, Brad.
Okay.
So Chad's in the band. Brad works at the publishing house in town. The heck's the name of them? I'll think of it. But so we really just had a great time with that program. And then years later, we had the Chili Peppers at the North Pole.
Really?
It was for Molson Ice, and that was after an acquisition of Miller. And so I met Anthony Kiedis a couple times down in St. Bart's. Met Chad down there, just happenstance walking down the beach or over at a store. My boys were really young at the time, and they were in some outdoor surf shop or something, and they came running out and they said, "Hey, Anthony Kiedis is in there, Dad. You know him, really? Yeah, really well, right?" I go, "I don't think he'll remember me." I didn't say that to him, but I go, "I don't know. I'll go in, I'll say hi." Came up to him, I said, "Anthony, Gary Reynolds." He goes, "GMR Marketing." Well, I go, "Wow, how did you remember that?" And he said I'd played he was saying I played everywhere multiple times in the world. I'm only going to play the North Pole once, and you brought me there.
Wow.
And we all flew up together, with the big, giant, Airbus or something that had all the equipment
in the plane with
It was a cargo ship.
Oh, and you were just sitting in the plane?
We were sitting in the back. They have about 12 rows for people, and they have all the whatever
The
they're
cabin's
bringing
open. Yeah.
cabin's way up front, and the cabin's open, and then they weigh everything, and they build aisles up to the cockpit. So, but we were in the back.
Yeah.
It was great. So much fun.
That's a hilarious story. Would you have ever thought when you started the company that you'd have an experience like that?
No, gosh, no. Look, I was dirt poor, grew up dirt poor, and just I was just trying to make some money and pay my rent. Right.
When was the turning point where you really realized that this business could take off?
That's an interesting question. It was. I'll tell you, now obviously it's good, and near the end it was good, but I always referred to it as I always heard footsteps behind me, and that kept me. I wasn't focused on making money. I was focused on I wanted to make enough money to survive, right, and pay my bills and grow, but I never really just sat back until later years and go, wow, what we built, the growth of the agency, it was just so significantly large in the marketing world. I mean, we were the 800-pound gorilla. And it was only then that have gone, it was really a successful run, fantastic, and we're still in the business. But
yeah,
but I always referred to it as I can always hear footsteps behind me, and that's just a reminder. Going, there's always somebody. The competition is always behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're leading in the race, you can hear those footsteps behind you. Somebody coming up. But it was just such a great run.
So that kept you motivated and kept you running?
Yeah.
Interesting. How did your role as CEO or founder change throughout the growth of the company? Because I'm sure at the beginning you were pitching everything, and then you kind of became a facilitator, hiring people, and
really a small magic moment where all of a sudden you go, you're now a CEO. You just learn the business. There's no map on how it all works together.
Mm-hmm.
But we added a few people here and more later, and I think when we did the acquisition, or when Omnicom acquired us, I think we were maybe 60 people.
Oh, wow.
Something like that.
Wow.
And when I left, if you include all of our offices, I think we had close to 900, 1,000.
Really?
And then we had field people by the thousands, and they were just the gig workers, like doing sampling somewhere, or we're in store at some location.
Wow. So you guys specialize really in that bands with brands, putting on the events? Is that what
bands and brands? So that was just the start.
Okay.
And then we moved into bigger things. We did major tours. That's why I was showing you we brought the Who. We did their 25th anniversary tour, so we brought them out. Phil Kerbishley was managing. He was also managing Zeppelin. So we tried to convince First Bill of getting Zeppelin out of retirement, coming out. And the band was, drummer was dead, but the band members were not on friendly terms. Anyway, we did it. But then we started moving into, we did Elton John, I think, for a piece of that. Coca-Cola, we did Mercedes, the Stones. So lots of really interesting tours. And then we were getting into venue sponsorship. So all the outdoor venues, which were really big back in the day. I guess they're still big, but they were all independent promoters in every city. And so we were just negotiating all these deals, and, Miller High Life presents, or Miller Brewing Company presents, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, and we really expanded into general market stuff, or, sampling, or heck, whatever a brand needed, we were there. We had a really significant warehousing operation where we were taking all of their materials, very time-sensitive materials, had to get to destinations. And so we were coordinating a ton of logistics over the years. And so we kept growing into new areas. And then we got into sports. Can't remember the year, but we were actually fairly significant in the sports side as well. We had NFL as clients, MLB, NHL, NASCAR, but we had the Packers.
Wow.
We did the naming rights for the Eagles stadium, the stadium in New Orleans. Yeah, a few of them.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, we just kept expanding. There was just no limit to what we would do. I mean, we even dabbled a little bit in advertising, but that was of no interest really to us. So many people much better than us, and we were part of Omnicom. They had hundreds of agencies,
right.
Some of the top ad agencies. So we were satisfied doing our gig.
Yeah.
And equally so, they were satisfied doing their stuff. And then we started collaborating within Omnicom. And as I think I told you, we started a holding company. So we called it Radiate Group. And we bought all these agencies, brought them all together under Radiate. And then we aligned with various ad agencies and PR firms within Omnicom and outside. And they would defer all of their event experiential stuff to us. We would help them during pitches for like Lowe's. Lowe's was not an Omnicom ad client.
Okay.
So we helped pitch that one. We won that. And then we won we already had all the execution, the experience side of it. And those were the kind of collaborations that really kind of energized GMR. And just when we had explosive growth.
Right. Yeah. Because then it was all in-house pretty much. Like you already had the partners to work with.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Yeah. And honestly, on Omnicom, I don't know how many clients they have today, but if you start adding them all up individually among all those hundreds of agencies, it's like 8,000 clients.
Wow.
And they were all nice, kind of warm sales calls in those days because an ad agency or somebody would make the introduction for us. Yeah, I think that probably sums up
the collaboration
side of it.
So how did it work in the beginning with bringing the bands with the brands? Would you pay the band and then the company, so say like Miller would give you a budget to pay the band to have like a banner above them?
Well, they didn't pay the band because the bands, we were picking bands that were doing, those days, bands were gigging at clubs all the time. And nobody could survive in the music business by not playing in bars.
Right.
And bars, every single bar had music, live music. And so they were performing 200 plus dates a year in the bars.
Okay.
And guess what beer sold in the bars? It was a perfect marriage. And so what we did is we traded off marketing to the bands to put up Miller banner. We printed up, and this was, pre-internet web, but we had posters and table tents and all the things that you would do to promote a band in a bar. And these are all full color, really well done. And so we're just trading off marketing and advertising, and the fact that 2 weeks before every single gig, they'd have a local distributor and their sales teams going out into the market to those bars and creating a bar promotion.
Okay.
So the band then would have kind of a built in. I mean, they already had their audience, but they'd have a built-in extra boost in that mix.
Okay.
That, hey, there's a promotion going on, 20-cent taps or whatever, and that was the trade-off. We never paid the bands, although Miller, on occasions over the years too, also hired bands for festivals and what have you. So they did make some money.
Gotcha. And how did you get, like, in the beginning, like you said, you just pitch Paps? Was there like some lead generation, like cold calling that you did, or how did you get the clients at the beginning?
It's pretty basic. Well, I had the idea, and I didn't, I didn't even think about rejection, on a sales call. I wasn't really all that adept at sales. I mean, that's what I say. And look at them. We successfully sold a lot of clients in the early days, but I wasn't the best salesperson. We had some amazing salespeople, but so I just had an idea, and good ideas find their way.
Mm-hmm.
And I went over, and it was just kind of intuitive. And it was odd. The brand manager at Miller, the night before I pitched, they were out at a local bar, and they actually saw the Paps poster of the band that I had signed for that deal. So I only signed one band to Paps, and Paps was in total disarray. They were selling. And so when I pitched him the next day, he goes, I was at a bar last night. I saw that poster, and I didn't know it was you, but it was somebody else that works at Miller. They were both out, and he goes, "That's brilliant. We should do this." And then I walked in the next day and pitched him.
Yeah. So he had his head out.
He just goes, "We're sold. We're due. How many bands do you want to start with?" And I recommended 5. We ended up with like 20 bands a year. Some we'd renew, some we wouldn't. And we had bands like the Fabulous Thunderbirds and others on there. I don't know if you know. But some really, really interesting artists, and they're all emerging. They're all finding their way in the music business, and they all, in some shape or form, found a way in the music business.
Mm-hmm. How did you go about networking? Because I'm sure in the marketing world, networking is huge. Who you know, and how did you find these bands and like get in contact with them?
Well, I was in a band, so I wasn't at that time any longer. But I mean, I was in a band. I knew the booking agents out there. I knew the process. I could call up bar owners and just talk to them and ask them, who's doing well in your club on a regular basis. Who do you book your bands through? Yeah, I mean, all you're doing is just it's all phone work. And you're just building up your database and network. So it's fairly easy, actually.
Yeah, just making a bunch of calls and connecting people together.
Yeah, you had to pick the right acts. You could see through those that were, they didn't have a great. So when you talk to bands, and very similar to companies, by the way, the culture in a company, there's also cultures in a band. There's cultures in any group. I don't care if it's a running club or whatever. You have to kind of assess who you're going to put your time and effort behind. Because the last thing you want is Miller to be spending a bunch of money printing up posters and doing all this effort, and same for us, and then the band breaks up. So, which that happens often. But you got to kind of weed through that. But it was kind of fun.
Yeah,
fun.
For sure. Was there ever a time where you were worried about the business not succeeding, or was it always just...
Yeah, every day.
Every day? Yeah.
I mean, even in some of our most successful times, I mean, I worried about it all the time. I was so just totally focused on how do we grow the business? How do we bring great people together, hiring the best people that we could. And I was, incredibly blessed to come across people like Smathers and others that are still there and have gone on to do some great things. We just picked the right people, and we had, and remember we were the front runner. There's nobody even doing experiential in the market. So we had people were like finding out about us and going, I want to work there. There was just nothing like it anywhere else. So that made it a little easier, but you still had to pick really good people.
Yeah.
And, I always look at people and just go, if the parents didn't do a good job, we can't change those bad habits. We're gonna live with those bad habits. So I know my interviewing of people, I'd be equally as interested in, how'd they grow up, where'd they grow up, what's the family about, what do you, how connected, just stuff you can't even ask these days.
Yeah.
You can't even ask some of the questions that we were, which is kind of a drag.
Right.
The regulations and the whole woke universe has killed a lot in business and in our culture. And let's hope it's moving in back right direction.
Right.
But we'll see.
Yeah, because I always like to ask about their backstory too, because I see these big entrepreneurs and it's like, where'd they come from?
Yeah.
Where did they learn all this stuff? How did they grow? What risks did they take? There's so much that goes into it, I feel like. And a lot of people don't see that. I was talking with one entrepreneur and he's like, it took 7 years to become an overnight success. And then everybody sees you and they think you had it from the get-go. Yeah.
And going back to the, if good ideas find a place, find a home is so true. But the backstories of people, it's just, they're great stories. Just all these incredible people that you just find them. And I'll tell you, I was recruiting every single time I went anywhere. I don't care if it was to the hardware store or to a bar. Some of our best people were, in the wait staff, because they're so good with people, and you could just see just how great they were, how detailed they were. I mean, look, the business is way more sophisticated now, so we need maybe different skill sets, but we still to get that right cultural fit, really hustle and work that.
Yeah. Something interesting that Mark told me is that he kind of found his passion in being a people person. It wasn't so much in marketing, but it was being a facilitator and people person, which is interesting that you bring that up, because you were saying that people that you hired, you wanted them to have good relationship skills and communication with people.
Right.
Which is so big, I feel like.
Yeah. And Mark was one of the best, and just the wacky moments and all memories come streaming off of the stuff that Mark and I and hundreds of others have done over the years. So it was kind of.
So Mark told me a story. He was like, yeah, Gary was so devoted, he'd run 10 miles and he'd come into the office. Could you talk more about that?
Well, those days when I ran.
Yeah.
Back surgery has, kind of stopped that years ago. But, I'd run every single morning with my one of my dogs, and rains, snow, blizzards, anything. But I was always in the office by 7 o'clock.
Wow. Till when? Whenever?
Sometimes, you go from the office to out to a Miller after-hour meeting, or there's a client in town, you're taking them dinner, or we just head out to the bars, or whatever. It was just crazy stuff. So I put in massive hours. I didn't even take a day off. there was a 9-year stretch. I never took a day off. I was in the office every single day. Sunday, if there was a wedding, I'd still be in the office either before I left or I'd stop in after. I know it was nuts. And then Mark came into the company during those crazy years when nobody told me about vacations. I mean, I understood vacation, but that we have to offer vacations and pay for vacations. And my wife was, and we literally had no life. She was part of the first 6 employees. And so nobody took a day off.
Yeah.
We were in there maybe Sunday after a few years, but yeah, for sure every Saturday, 5 days, 6 days a week and long, long hours. And we ended up getting married, and she worked up to the day before she gave birth to her first kid.
Wow.
Then she was done.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So was there ever days, I feel like I struggle, I have a couple businesses, and I feel like some days I struggle to not like get a grasp on what I have to do. There's like so many things in my mind that could be done, but some days I feel like I can't pinpoint what has to be done. Is there a strategy that you use to lay out like what you need to get done and whatnot?
Well, it was old school because, we didn't have the cell phones in the beginning. I mean, there are literally no cell phones. When I landed Apple, just to give you an example of the dynamics in communication, I had an idea for Apple, went out to pitch them. Doug Draper was the guy. We're still acquaintances, friends today. Anyway, he's no longer at Apple, but anyway, I pitched him, and that was about a year later. So you walk me out, and I had about 12 people that I pitched to. Some were sitting on cabinets. Some were in shorts. Most had flip-flops on. I mean, it was the early days of Apple.
Yeah.
Cupertino. It was amazing. The culture was crazy fun. And when Jobs used to have his beer garden right outside. And so Doug walked me out to the door, said, really loved your presentation. And I was in a suit and tie. I was the only,
and they were
having that entire office complex, and went out to the car. And I remember he said he'd call. Well, he was really interested in it. It took him a year. And I thought, hey, I blew it. I remember opening up the back door of this tiny little rental car and taking my tie and jacket off and putting it in the back. And I'm like, I suck. That was a terrible presentation. Anyway, a year later, I'm in Boston. We're doing a big college concert back in the days when they sold beer on campus. And I called the office, payphone, and they said, hey, Doug Draper just called and said you need to call him right away. So put my coins in, made the phone call from payphone. He goes, we loved your presentation. I'm sorry it's taken us so long, but we want to hire you.
Wow.
And it was one of our biggest accounts. So I had Miller, which is a giant account. Apple became a giant account. And that we started growing the heck out of the business with those two. And so, it was, those were, I can't remember the original question. Sorry.
I think that was right on track with what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I was just going to add on to it, how the dynamic has changed we were talking about in pitching and stuff.
Yeah.
If I was to pitch a company right now, I'd find somebody on LinkedIn that has a high up certificate at a company and just email them or something and get on a Zoom call. I feel like that's how it is today.
Yeah.
It was so much different in that.
Way different. You had to really go out. You have to be in person and pitch, and really, it was just a different process. But I remember one of the questions you were asking about was how do you keep everything in some kind of order on all the things you have to do when you're building a business, and there's a zillion ideas that go through your head.
Yeah.
Well, so again, it was before cell phones and everything, and I got into the habit of taking a legal pad and just writing down, filling every single line, numbering them. And then as things went off the list, and enough of them, I'd rewrite that entire list because I'd be pages of ideas, things that I needed to do, some kind of blocking and tackling stuff that I needed to get done with an accountant and whatever. Others were just crazy ideas. I came across one of my, I used to save all my ideas, as crazy as they were. Had a whole binder filled with pages and pages of ideas. And I ran across them. I don't know where they are now. I know they're packed somewhere, but I'm going, God, that most of the ideas sucked, but there were a few really outstanding ideas. I'm going, damn, if I were to really get back into building another business, there's some decent ideas. They're still relevant and whatever. But that legal pad, and then, kind of went to, your iPhone and then just writing list stuff. I have lists in my phone on everything. Stuff I need from the hardware store to, well, now it's pretty, ordinary stuff. But yeah, but that legal pad filled with things I needed to do was my kind of rudder on how I managed that business. And then you'd find out all sorts of things. I mean, they're just all over the place, that our employees, maybe one of them back in the early days when we only had 20-some employees or something, somebody was buying a car or buying a refrigerator or getting a new place or getting married, whatever. I would always be tracking anything that people would be doing so I could help them in some way. And, whether it was, I've made, back in the day where you could do a interest-free loan to somebody, I would just give them an interest-free loan and they just pay me back. It was their, a new car, or that was probably the most exotic. I didn't buy houses for anybody. But I gave down payments on all sorts of stuff, and they paid me back. Well, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
When those people are out just, talking to some of the other employees, and in that I wanted to go and tell them I, helped them out with a little free loan on some stuff. But they were just going, this is the place to be. This is the place to work, and that just keeps building on itself. And if you just treat people well and respectful and, whatever, it's going to come back in multiple factors.
Oh, very interesting. So would that notebook that you take all those notes in, would you check that like every morning, every night, or throughout the day?
Throughout the day, all the time. I'm going, I check the ones, and then, and it's a process you go through. You get into this groove, and I'm tell you, I'm still a note writer. I have a zillion notes on stuff, and actually, a couple of my kids are doing the same thing. Now they do their list on all sorts of, their computer, their phone, whatever. But a couple of them actually do write lists of everything, because they used to see that. And weirdly, I used to doodle while I'm on a phone, phone call, and I was on the phone all the time. So I'm doodling on stuff, and there were some really exotic, crazy doodles that went down the full page, and the kids were so mesmerized by it. Friends would even employees would just go, "Oh my God, look at this. And this crazy." They're just doodles that just, you're not even thinking about them.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking on the phone, you're just doodling. It was probably because I had some undiagnosed ADHD or something, that I needed something else.
Mm-hmm.
I probably could have used the medication back in the day, but doodling, maybe that's some new therapy. I have to start that. But it was fun.
Gotcha. Was there what was like one of the biggest, I guess, risks that you took? Because starting a business, there's so many risks that you have to take.
Yeah. Well, I think in the way I thought about the business, everything that we did was a risk. Although I was a risk taker, I wouldn't bet the house.
Okay.
Like I don't gamble. It just doesn't appeal to me. So I'm not gonna throw it all on number 8.
Yeah.
And let it ride. But you'd take a risk at hiring a person, like when we were starting to grow and we needed a PR person. So that's a salary that you're taking on that is not paying anything immediately. And so you just it's a cost of doing business and getting PR, and I did all of our own PR, and after a while it was just too much. You just couldn't make the phone calls. But every year we'd be an ad age and Billboard magazine, and we'd have they'd have their special issues and features like young emerging artists and things. We would always be in there just because of all the band stuff. So, you're taking risks every time you fill a position with somebody, hoping that you eventually start making money with it. Make it a paid type position with your clients. And then we started actually selling PR services. So we had a little PR team almost for the entire duration of GMR. Although they were more kind of company focused, not really doing client work.
Okay.
Necessarily.
But they did do a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's a nice way of defraying that overhead.
Yeah. So you said, and we both kind of agreed on that, hiring people for being a people person is important. How would you kind of train them and get them into working well in a role? Because they could be a good people person, but maybe they're not so good at marketing and have to get trained into being a good marketer.
Yeah, well, look, at training was not part of the equation. Actually, probably Mark would be better and funnier with it, because GMR we were more like hire you and we throw you into the deep end of the pool.
Okay.
The very next morning. And I mean, with some, people that will jump in to save you if needed, but training wasn't at top of the list. We were making it up as we were going along. Remember, there wasn't even an event marketing industry.
Right.
We created it. And so there's no book, there's no map. And so you just go, hey, winging it.
Yeah.
And people got in the groove. And then after a while, I'll tell you, it wasn't me that did the training, but everybody else. They were, they were just natural leaders. And you hire the right people, and those people, the best of the best comes out.
Yeah.
And that's hell. I relied on that because I probably wasn't the greatest training type person in the world, but
no lifeguard on duty.
No. But I mean, look, it was, I believed in the people. I shared that, and I think that was probably the motivation that they probably needed.
Gotcha. Well, let's wrap it up with these few last questions I have here that are not really related to business, but just fun questions I wanted to ask you. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? I think we kind of answered that with the
rock star.
I
mean, I started playing guitar at 5 years old.
Yeah.
5, 6 years old.
What's your favorite restaurant in the area?
Oh, man. Well, they've changed since COVID. I have not been as active. My wife and I going downtown and just, meandering around the city. I think our restaurants are kind of moving out into like Oconomowoc, Lago, something.
Oh, Lago Isabella?
Yeah.
That Italian place?
Yeah.
Right by Oconomowoc? Yeah,
It's one of my favorite.
I haven't been.
I can't remember the dang name, but
Lago Isabella, I think it is.
yeah, it's
I need
incredible.
to go there. 2 people have told me to go there.
It's off the charts.
What's your favorite thing to order there? What's good? Everything, pretty much? I feel like
I hate to say everything, but I'll tell you, everything is amazing. I've never had a bad meal, and I've had, other than maybe steak, I'm not a big steak person, but everything, all the pasta, just incredible. Yeah, so we pulled back over the course of time with after COVID, and we started really focusing on eating out in the burbs.
Mm-hmm.
But Lago's really,
I need to try it.
you have to. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
All right. Did you have a mentor or a big inspiration throughout the process or growing up?
Not an official type mentor. I never had a board of directors where there was a lot of people that, just suggested it might be really good and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the right business, it'd be great. We were different. So we were building a company that really had very little connective tissue to the local industry, except for Miller Brewing Company.
Mm-hmm.
There are other companies, of course, but you remember we were selling experiential, and that was something very new. Some companies were just really getting in on their own on just advertising, traditional advertising. So we didn't really pitch many companies. Johnsonville was, I'd have to say, probably the most successful after Miller on a local basis. We did the big grilling truck that tours.
Yeah. That huge
hydraulically opens up, and I don't know how many we had. And that was actually one of my my first employee, and one of my best friends. He passed away, Brian Buskey. He came up with that idea, and that's where I'm telling you, great ideas find a place.
Mm-hmm.
He, I don't know what we were talking about. It was just, we were just kind of having a beer and just talking about something. He thought, oh, it'd be great, because we were creating all these big experiential trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought, wouldn't it be great to take one of those tanker type trucks and trailers and have it created into a giant grill that unfolds. It was an amazing idea. So we went up, he and I went up to pitch directly Ralph Stair, the owner.
Mm-hmm.
Ralph's long retired, and met him multiple times down in Naples, Florida, where he's living. But it just, I can't remember exactly where I was going with it, but great ideas can happen anywhere, and they'll find a home. And so we were in a business, I think you're asking, mentors or advisory board. Look, I think, don't know your businesses, but I think advisory boards are really helpful. Get key people on.
Mm-hmm.
They can make introductions. They can move your business forward. Way better today than maybe back in the day for us. Only because we were in an industry that was so new. We had to sell people on the concept of doing event marketing.
Right.
They weren't inclined or predisposed to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If we were selling advertising, be different. Then I think a board of directors and having a board would be helpful. Today would be helpful in any business, because there's not much that's new that people don't hear about today.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, we just never did it.
Yeah.
And there's no regret. I think my only regret was not having the digital platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook and all that. We had Rolodex, if you even know what that is.
I feel like I do. Is that like where you like write down people's names and like I'm supplementing
Or staple a card to flips a little paper that flips around, and everybody would have a Rolodex. And so, unlike today and social media, you can pretty much stay connected to whoever you want.
Right.
Back in the day, you had to go through your Rolodex and go, who haven't I talked to for a while? It was so cumbersome, so silly, but that was the reality. So advisory boards can connect you. Today's social media has you connected, uber connected to everyone and everything. I'm not saying it's easier to do business today. It's just different.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it is much easier. You can, I guess maybe, I don't know if you could fail faster or grow faster. Some whatever industry you're choosing. Love to hear about your business and stuff. I love hearing people's ideas about business. Oh man,
yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest things that I'm known for. Whenever I'm out somewhere, I'm more interested in hearing about what someone else is doing, than what I've done or whatever. But it's inspiring.
We'll wrap up these last 2 questions, then we can chat about it for a little bit. So you can ask me questions. So what's your favorite hobby?
I don't really have a hobby. I golf, but I really suck at it. But I guess music would be it. If it's not curating music for my own pleasure, it's playing music. Grab a guitar. I'm just kind of self-taught piano and plunking around stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they always tell you don't retire before you have a really amazing hobby.
Yeah,
and that's so true.
Yeah,
you do struggle with it. But I never really fully retired up till about this past year. So I always had other businesses going on, side businesses, whatever. We have now one of my very dear friends and former employee. He was our managing director in Europe, but he's from Chicago, Mark Bushala. He's like a genius savant. He left GMR, came back from Europe, was with us, and then he left. And he said, "Hey, I really want to get into the restaurant business." And then the distilled spirits business. I invested in every one of his projects and did so well that I have other friends that I brought in. So we have 2 restaurants in Chicago. We created, and when I say we're passive investors, but always still very connected on ideas. But the dogs are all, probably it's getting close to supper times. That's the only reason they come down.
Yes.
But hey, Ollie, get it. Sorry. So always doing some businesses, and actually Mark created Angel's Envy.
We didn't talk about that, huh?
And we again, I'll use the collective we sold it to Bacardi about 6 years ago. It was a great return. And then we have other brands out there, but we launched one with Bob Dylan, and it's called Heaven's Door.
Okay.
And back on the bar there, blowing the seams out of it. So good. I think we'll sell it. But Bob is very active with the brand. This wasn't an endorsement deal. He actually helped curate that brand.
Huh. All right, last question. What advice do you have for if a young entrepreneur were to come up to you and say, what's just one thing of advice? starting out?
It's your effort. It's all how much you're willing to work.
Okay.
And I just find so often that I just see and we hear on the news, just, people, they're only going to take a remote job. They're only going to do this. Oh, okay, that's cool, man. But there wasn't even remote jobs, up until we had the COVID.
Yeah.
Sure, there was some, but I just don't see people as hardworking. They lack the work ethic, and so that would be my biggest. I'm not going to say, hey, you should have a better work ethic, because I'm not going to say that to somebody. But you have to have a work ethic that's you got to be willing to put in 7 days a week, and you got to be willing to forego buying stuff or doing things and traveling and whatever. I think that's just my opinion, but I'm kind of a maniacal at my approach to what you have to do to make a business successful.